Good morning from the Moyie River Valley in far north Idaho. This is a gorgeous valley that's 2.5 miles long. The title of our program is Save the Moyie River Valley, and what we would need to save it from is save it from the Union Pacific Railroad, who has a rail line running down the middle of this valley. They want to add a siding track, which means another track where they can park trains. It's known they're the biggest polluters in the country are trains at siding projects that are sitting still, leaching, dripping serious toxic chemicals and heavy metals. If you'll bear with me, I'll try to explain what we're up against and that we need your help. This is the Moyie River. We're looking north right now, and we'll show you to the south. Hey, our huge problem is here we are in this pristine valley. We've got shallow water wells, we've got the Moyie River right here, and we've got some peace and quiet. That's all gone if this thing goes through. What we are very concerned about is getting the point across to the Army Corps of Engineers and the State Department of Water Resources. We've got to get some experts in here and do an environmental inventory, does that make sense? And what you call an environmental impact statement. And study this before they can put something in like that. Our big problem right now is getting our county commissioners to recognize the county comprehensive plan and to look at this as we have and come to the same conclusion as we have. It's not good. There's no benefit to the county, and really they have a duty, we believe, to protect our rights, our private property rights. And you're viewing the Moyie River Valley. As you can see from the far end, that's the north end. This valley runs 2.5 miles long. Now, over to the east that we're photographing right now is the Snyder Creek drainage. And that ridge up there is called Deer Ridge. That's about 4,500 feet. In any event, this is the Snyder Creek watershed. All the water that comes out flows west to the Moyie River. The toxic bomb that Union Pacific Railroad wants to drop on us, again, is this siding project. And you can see they've already cut trees down in the area that they want to put another railroad track. The problem is, sitting railroad cars are heavy polluters of carcinogens, 17 different kinds of chemicals that drip into the ground and go into the groundwater. There's a huge aquifer under here that services all of our private wells that are just over here across the street. The only beneficiary from this project, the only one, is the railroad, the county. How can the county benefit when all they're taking on is liability, extreme liability for those people's health and safety, and have to maintain it at their expense? Listen, I want to say the heavy metals that go in there, I'm going to read this a little bit. Lead, cadmium, copper, zinc, mercury, cobalt, iron, chromium, lubricant oils, condenser fluids, transportation of oil derivatives, metal ores, fertilizers, moldable toxic chemicals, herbicides, and PCBs. They're all carcinogens. They'll all kill you. We don't want it in our water. That whole train's full of chemicals. That's what leaches onto the ground when these trains are sitting still. We're showing you this watershed one more time. I can't emphasize enough. All this water, all this snow water, rainwater comes rushing out. You can see how steep it is. But it's blocked by these railroad tracks. It's an unnatural barrier. And believe it or not, all this whole watershed, there is only one culvert pipe that goes underneath the railroad so that this water can go west to and empty into the Moyie River. This is the only drainage for this whole watershed that we've just shown you, the whole 2.5 miles. That is the only culvert pipe draining this whole valley. Why do I say that? Because you got a lot of water coming out and it's totally misengineered and mismanaged. On the other side of the tracks, when there's heavy water and snow runoff, there's tremendous pooling back there. Comes to this pipe, goes underneath the road, and goes down that channel, and just right behind those bushes over there is the Moyie River. The point that I want to make, the railroad, they said that this creek was an intermittent creek. Well, that's the biggest hoax in the world. This thing runs 24/7, 365, and the volume of water coming out of here, the volume of water sometimes is so heavy that it goes this way and this way, and we'll show you it's pooling up down there already. It can't contain all the water. Part of our problem is we needed an environmental assessment because nobody knows how much water's in the watershed, and a thing called cubic feet per second. When you have a channel like this, the only way to measure how much water we're talking about is to have a hydrologist, an expert, study it, and he can determine cubic feet per second. It's called CFS. Right now, we have no science whatsoever. No one has ever determined the cubic feet per second. Something's holding this water towards the surface. We need a geologist to do the core drillings all along here to find out what's underneath here before you put another railroad track here. Over the years, up until 2011, I've been here since 2002, this gets so full that it floods over this road. It flooded about 7 years in a row, and I'm not talking about a little water trickling over the road. I'm talking about a lot of water going 20, 30, 40 yards and making itself a river going straight into the neighbor's property. Union Pacific ignored the whole thing. They never did a thing until people got a hold of them and said something. They found out that their track was being jeopardized because the water was saturating the fill where those railroad tracks are. At that time, the county road department and the railroad made a bigger culvert pipe right here underneath this road, dug out that trench better so that it would flow, and it hasn't flooded since. But I must say, since that fix, we haven't had a normal winter or an above normal winter. We haven't had 3 feet of snow on the ground like we do a lot of times. And so nobody really knows if this system that they did is going to work or not. We're just south of the drain pipe that I just showed you. The reason that we're filming this is because you can see from way down there, the water comes in here and sits. This is all wetlands now. Goes all the way down there. That's because that system can't control the water, all the water, to go to the Moyie River, so it comes in this trench. What happens to this water when there's another railroad track, a built-up railroad track like that one right over there that's sitting right here? Where does all this water go? We need help. We need some experts, and we need your vote. There's a huge problem here. Why would there be water for this whole stretch if they had done it correctly? Or can it even be done correctly? That's the issue with the water coming out of this watershed. This is the west side of the road. All this water is coming underneath these tracks and coming up through that aquifer back to the surface. You can see on the neighbor's property right here, it's all water in there. That's not coming from that drainage down the way. That's coming from underneath the tracks. The water people from the control this county road did put a small culvert pipe that comes out right over there, but you don't see any culvert pipe coming underneath the railroad tracks. Where does all this water go if there's a track there? We believe it's going to jeopardize the road and go over the road. So you flood out these properties, how's the landowner ever going to get paid? Also notice how quiet that it is. This is the way it is here about 99% of the time. Well, that party will be over once you have running locomotives sitting on these railroad tracks. There's 5 types of pollution that come with the siding project. Air pollution, carcinogenic from the diesel exhaust, noise pollution, site pollution, ground pollution, and underground pollution. You know, normally these siding projects are put where there's not people, where there's no underground aquifers, where there's no fresh water wells within 200 or 300 feet, and where there's no Moyie River that's really about 400 to 500 feet from where we are right now. These projects usually go out in rangeland, farmland, timberland. You're not closing off people's driveways and you're not jeopardizing their wells. Yeah, another problem with this siding project of the railroad, listen, you can see a neighbor's driveway right here. There's about 4 driveways. This is on the east side of these railroad tracks. As you can see to the north, they're starting to make a new road for these people because they're going to block their driveway. They're going to landlock these people, and they're going to make them drive 1.5 miles to get out. The problem is that their safety is totally jeopardized. What if there's a fire that races up or down here? What if there's a heart attack? What if there's a need for an emergency vehicle to get in here? What do they got to do? Go another 1.5 miles and cut back? It's just not good, and we're urging the county to never go along with it because they want the county to take total responsibility. It's a win for the railroad, a total loser for the county, because they're going to end up being totally responsible for these people's safety. It doesn't have to be here, and that's the emphasis that we're trying to make. This should be somewhere else. I'm sure they can find 1 mile or 2 north or south of here. In fact, we know that there's a northern piece between here and the border, which is about 6 miles, that is an ideal place to put siding, and there's no homes there. People with wells or the Moyie River's not close by. Why they don't choose that rather than here is beyond me, other than a representative said one time, it's the cheapest and easiest. Well, come on, man. Cheapest and easiest, when you're making $24 billion, you can spend a little bit more money on a different site that you may have to prepare a little bit more. But so what? If this thing's going to last 100 years. Listen, what really bothers all the neighbors so far, we're not on any official list of the railroad. They've never notified us by mail, by email, or any other means of any of the stuff that they're doing to put in this siding project. We're out of the loop. They have totally ignored us. We only found out about it by accident. The county never told us. A couple of the neighbors had to go downtown and snoop around and start asking around. They were very vague. Oh, well, they, We did some research, and what we finally figured out is that really this is a land use issue. Let me explain. On this side of the road, where there's 45 people live in the 2 subdivisions, it's zoned suburban, it's residential. What we're finding is that, and we finally came to realize, is that the railroad wants an industrial use. That's what they put on their permit to the Army Corps of Engineers. They marked the box industrial, putting in a new industrial use across from a residentially zoned property. We want to take this up with the commissioners of whether or not they'll really study this like we have and agree an industrial use should not go right across the street from a residential suburban zoned property with families in it. And so really they're asking for a new use. We were here first. We were here first. And so we went to the county comprehensive plan, which has never been mentioned by our commissioners, that they've ever read it in relationship to our problem with this siding project. We're going to bring it up to them and say, look, you're the guys that passed the comprehensive plan. What is it? It's ordered by the Idaho Code about planning and land use, and we want them to invoke the Boundary County Comprehensive Plan because that is our only protection as private property owner. To the Bounty County Commissioners, please, please, read the comprehensive plan. You're the guys that wrote it. 2 of our commissioners signed off on the one that's currently in effect. Why it's been overlooked, we don't know, but we want to point it out to you that you would read our presentation. Please help us save the Moyie River Valley. Read the scientific evidence that we are going to deposit with the county of studies on the pollution of siding projects. And really, balance. Think about the extra total responsibility being taken on for the landlocked people to the east, and the railroad wanting the county to take on all this liability and responsibility. Please, why don't you call your insurance carrier and see what they think? Why would an insurance company want to insure an obscure road that's out in the middle of nowhere that you're responsible for the safety of the inhabitants? In summary, we need our commissioners to open their eyes and open their ears and open their minds and to look at the broader view that they have not looked at so far, and weigh this thing. And we really believe that if you do, you're really doing a service to your citizens. You're doing a service to the comprehensive plan and the land use laws that you wrote, and you'll do the right thing. Listen, I want to say this on behalf of myself and all of my neighbors, sweet people, and I'm talking to UPRR Railroad. You know, you probably don't even realize that we were here when you thought up this project. To your company, it's a straight stretch, it's near the border. The fact of the matter is, it's in the wrong place. The fact of the matter is, it's a luxury item, it's a convenience, it's not for the survival of the railroad. And we would ask the people from Union Pacific Railroad to really rethink, be human beings instead of some faceless corporation giant from Omaha, Nebraska. Maybe we ought to put it down the road a couple miles or up the road a couple miles where there ain't no people. There's a thing called the right spot. That would be the right spot. It may cost you a little bit more. It may take a little bit more time. But geez, it's a permanent situation where if one's put in, it's there forever. And we would just hope that the human element comes into the powers that be at the Union Pacific Railroad, and they would, you know, now that they know what they know and maybe hear this tape, maybe let's study that again. Maybe that's not the right spot. And really, man, they can get a siding project anywhere around here. In fact, they probably wouldn't have any opposition because there's no people around. A reminder to everybody that's watching this, Save the Moyie River Valley. We wrote a position paper and we have some exhibits. We have put it as a link. And so when you're done watching this, could you just put on that link and read? It goes into a lot more detail, and maybe it'll help you to understand our problem a lot better than I can tell you. And we need you to vote and to comment, and we have provided the Army Corps of Engineers, the Idaho Department of Water Resources, and the Boundary County Commissioners email addresses. We also have 2 other addresses, number 5 and 6, that you will see in our written report. And if you could make a group email, a broadcast email, so that everybody gets one, and we will get a copy, knowing that you've communicated with the Army Corps of Engineers and the County Commissioners and the Idaho Department of Water Resources, and we'd appreciate it.